We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. It feels alright when they come and say to you,
good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. Oh, dear me, how it is the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your transfer deadline day weekend, better known as Friday on Tyneside. But we do want to start with congratulating one of our fans forum panel members, Ian. Good evening, mate.
Evening, lads. How you doing?
All right, Ian. Any of you watched the fans forum on Monday will know that there was a call for help, a cry for help, and you helped us massively. We were asking for donations to Murphy's fundraiser for Teenage Cancer Trust. His brother Francis, who's 13, has beaten blood cancer twice, and he is jumping out of a plane to raise money for the Teenage Cancer Trust. What actually happened, though, on Monday was that Ian asked us to share that, which we, of course, did. It was in the hundreds, the amount that had been raised. We asked people to donate to the Just Given page, and it went over £1,000. And what Ian said was, if it went over £1,000, he would shave his hair off, and he's done it. So well done, Ian. We just wanted to get you on and congratulate you. How's it feeling, mate?
Feels very nice, actually. To be honest, my wife says that it's like having a different bloke. So I've said we can definitely have a role play on that. Like, so
I think the different bloke she was referring to was George, though.
like a younger, uglier version of George.
Yeah.
It's a birthday. She's listening. I mean, my mum and a bloke are here as well in the background listening. So say happy birthday to Emily, George.
Tell her happy birthday from George. I've already done it on Instagram. So
I've seen, mate. I've seen. No, I just want to say a big thanks, Steve, for sorting that out. If anyone can donate that hasn't donated, and I know it's hard times at the moment for everyone, so don't worry if you can't. But if anyone can, I think Steve's put the link in from what he said, and yeah, that's. I'll not be shaving anything more off though. I've not much left now, so that's about it.
Yeah, great stuff, mate. Well done. You went above and beyond, and glad we could help. Thanks to everybody who has made a donation. And as Ian says, if you can make a donation tonight, the link is in the chat. I'll leave it there all night for you to make donations. But Ian, thanks very much, mate. Have a good night. Take care.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks, lads. Take it easy.
Great stuff. Good to have him on. Well done. Well done to Ian. Yeah, and happy birthday to Emily as well. Okay. Oh God, where on earth do we start? You know, it's very rare that I, look at an NUFC Matters show and say I really can't be bothered. I'm afraid tonight is one of those nights. I'm sure by the end of it, I'll have enjoyed the 2 hours that I've spent with you lads and with everybody in the chat. But this week's had me absolutely exhausted. We've gone lurched from one catastrophe to another, and that might be, people might say that's extreme. People might say that it's over the top, and just remember where we were under Ashley, etc., etc. But I just feel in the pit of my stomach, I just feel disappointed. I feel a bit let down in terms of, Newcastle not having a plan B. I've actually listened to Eddie Howe's press conference twice today because I didn't want to come on here and misinterpret anything he'd said because you can misinterpret things. You can listen to something and hear what you want to hear. So I deliberately listened to it twice, and I don't change my opinion that I've given for the last couple of weeks. Eddie really does sound at times upset, at times disillusioned, and he's the man who has to front up the press. And I think at times the press have been rather kind to Eddie. I think he's built up that trust. I think he's built up the friendships with people, and I think he's built up this kind of opportunity to be able to sit in front of them and not have a hard time. But I think today, in just under 3 years that he's been at the club, that was the hardest press conference Eddie Howe's had to do. And at times he had to repeat himself. At other times he had to sit and listen to some absolutely stupid questions coming from people. Once again, Louise Taylor, take a bow. Another stupid question, 2 questions. In fact, you could see, Eddie looked visibly angry at Louise Taylor, and Lee Marshall tried to cut her short of having another question. Absolutely abysmal, absolutely abysmal. But moving on from that and not wanting to give her any more airtime, I just felt so sorry for Eddie. And I've deliberately gone out a couple of times in the last 24 hours and show my public support for Eddie Howe, because I just feel like he's been hung out to dry. And I don't know why. We can keep saying PSR, PSR, PSR. And I think what's prompted me to put out my almost support, my 100% support for Eddie, is the fact that there's so many negative people out there having a pop at Eddie, choosing to believe what's written in the papers and taking it as fact. There's a narrative being spun here that Eddie's only insisting on one player. He doesn't want anybody else apart from Mark Guehi. And we can't get Mark Guehi, then that's it. Don't bother. And that's absolute garbage. And he confirmed that today, that there's been other people. Grace, it's only a few weeks ago that we were chasing Tosin, and it was all about him. That's a reminder. It's another centre half. We didn't get him either. But it's disappointing. It's annoying. It gets more frustrated when you see certain players, and certain clubs still trading. Chelsea now making. I'm not saying I want Jadon Sancho at Newcastle, but Chelsea making an offer for him. Still in the market for Osherman. But like I said, the damning of this transfer window for Newcastle, there's nobody at the ground. Keith Downey's on a week. He's having a day off. Yeah, congratulations to Keith. Had a young child. But why is there nobody at St James's Park? Clearly because, like in previous transfer windows, they've been told that there's nothing doing today. Absolutely nothing doing. Don't bother. The only thing that looks like it's going to happen is, we might get rid of a couple of players. A couple of more players might go out. Ryan Fraser might go to Southampton. I'll believe it when I see it. But other than that, is there anyone coming in? We're just talking before we came on air. Elanga's, there's a rumor doing the rounds, amongst WhatsApp groups that Elanga might be, incoming. They need something. They bloody need something, because if this transfer window is shut now with the deals that we've done, losing Elliot Anderson, losing Midday, and bringing in a goalkeeper we're never likely to play, bringing in, a player from Bournemouth who, his injury record is there for all to see, but good squad player. Is he improving the team? Is he really improving the team? And bringing in a couple of, a few more youngsters who may or may not be any good, and Lewis Hall coming in as a new signing. Are we really going to go through this motion of saying Tonali's like a new signing? Honestly, you can hear it, everybody. Very rare am I this annoyed, angry, and upset, but it's a rubbish window. It's a terrible window. And that responsibility lies at PIF's feet. It lies at the Rubens' feet. It lies at Mitchell's feet. And it lies at Darren Eales' feet. Those are the people who we have in charge of our football club. PIF and Rubens make the decisions. And it's up to Eales and it's up to Mitchell to bring the players in and do the deals, and they haven't done them. Eddie Howe is a step away. He's told us this time and time again. So it's down to these people, and you know, these other people on social media who are saying, no, it's Howe's fault, blah blah blah. Honestly, I don't know where on earth what on earth you think is going on at the football club, but wake up, man, and smell the coffee. Amanda leaving has caused a lot of this as well. Amanda and my dad leaving, whatever reasons, you know, we'll never know the truth. But whatever's happened with them, there's a major issue again at our football club. But don't get us started on the fence behind the east stand. Mitch, I'm gonna have a pause for breath. I'm gonna have a drink of water, although I think I should be on something harder. You can tell me it. I'm sick, mate. I'm sick, and so you know. Listen, we've got another few hours to go before the transfer window shuts at 11 o'clock. We might get something, but I cannot see it. Like, I cannot see it. I'm not happy, Mitch.
If ever there was a time to use a musical quote, ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
Yep.
And I guess that's the feeling amongst a lot of people at the minute. If things stand as they are, this is our third window in which we've only really brought one player in to improve the first team squad. That's not a good place to be. I take a slightly different angle to you, though. The blame's on everyone, Eddie included. We've got a clear structure, and at the minute we seem to have power games going on. I have a feeling what I think's happening, but I'm not sure. But there are too many statements that aren't compatible with each other for me. PSR's a problem, but we want to buy Mark Guehi for £70 million. Then PSR's not a problem. I'm sorry, it's not. Mark Guehi, if we had signed him, it has got to the point with him, if something miraculous was to happen in the next 2 hours, when he comes in, I want Franco Baresi and nothing else. Really. My expectations for him are Franco Baresi. And because, by God, he must be good if we've allowed Palace to lead with a merry dance the way they have. PSR can't be a problem because you can't tell me they can't identify 2 players at 30 million each who wouldn't improve our first team squad. You can't tell me there's not a centre-back out there available for 30 million who could come in and act as a squad player down the line. That would be a better option than moving Kraft into the midfield, and that's nothing. Sorry, into the middle of the centre, middle of the defence. That's nothing against Kraft, by the way. I like the guy. I like him a lot, but he's a right back, and that's where he should be used more often if needed. He's filling in at centre back. It also shows what one injury rate at the minute at the back from being in a little bit of a crisis, because both Botman and Lascelles are still pretty damn far away from first team football. So couldn't surely somebody somewhere, and at the minute we've got Howe saying he's a step removed from transfers, yet the club seem to be inferring, and Howe's used this terminology himself, that they were picking from a small pot of players. And that if it is the case that it's Guehi or no one, I think that's exceptionally short-sighted. That disappoints me immensely. Is it a possible scenario equally as possible as Howe's being currently hung out to dry? Yes. Because we don't know. We don't know what's gone on. It certainly stems back to Amanda's and Maydad leaving the club. That's unsettled people at all sorts of levels. We've then seen Bruno given the captaincy. Word I'm hearing is that's come out, and he's been given it to keep him happy because he was pissed off when he got back and found Amanda had disappeared. And that it had nothing to do with Trippier. Fascinating. How does Joe Linton feel signing a new contract and being persuaded to extend his stay mainly by Amanda, and then she's gone? I bet he's not terribly happy either. And you could go on and on. But then we have an executive team with a definite structure who I freely admit, like I said when it was shown, and the way Amanda and Mairdad were going on, our structure would have looked like a Donkey Kong map, not a bloody proper organised structure, because they were in everything and everywhere. And that really, I would imagine with an organised structure in a proper club, if you will, that would piss people off, and I wouldn't want people interfering in my business if that was my area and that was my domain. We brought Paul Mitchell in with his reputation of being great at identifying talent. Where's the talent? Where is it? French football's in disarray. They're all, even with the new TV deal that's finally been scratched through, they're all at least 25 million euros short on their accounts, each club. That's a whole division ready to be cherry picked. I feel exceptionally let down. Darren Eales is on record on the club Twitter feed somewhere around about the 16th of last month, saying we will use every bit of headroom in every window to stretch our PSR to the maximum. Really? There was no asterisks in that comment, that if you look below, if we can decide to agree to play nice and everybody wants to buy the same players. Because if there's a pushback from Eddie on suggestions from other people in his recruitment team, or if there's pushback towards Eddie from the executive team saying, right, we're going to give you this transfer window and we're going to let you sink and swim on it, that's fantastic, but it affects all of them. It affects every single one of us who support Newcastle United. We feel very... and this feeling's been coming, and I've been trying to stay on the positives and hope to hell that they were going to pull something out or find some accord. It's obvious these rumours of a power play going on in Newcastle United since Amanda and Mairdad's departure, it seems to be more and more true. Yes, we're not the worst team in the world. Yes, we've got Tonali back. It looks like we've got Willock back. His injury isn't too bad. Yes, we're in a decent position, but we should be strengthening that position. And in football, if you stand still, you go backwards. And everybody else around you has added to their squads and built. There's no guarantee their signings will be a success. Would I want half of their signings? No, absolutely not. I don't think they'd fit for one reason or another. But sure as hell, if we've got £70 million to spend on Guehi, that could have been spread about through 2 or 3 players that I'm sure would still enhance the squad, that I'm sure would have still given more cover and more depth as the season goes on. But instead now, we seem to be scrambling for the scraps. And frankly, it's embarrassing. We've been embarrassed by Crystal Palace. Again, we lost control of a narrative. We let Crystal Palace open the floodgates to the press, and it became an absolute public joke. I don't expect anybody to come from the club to come out and explain everything. I don't think that's the position too, and I don't think anybody would. But they've really missed a trick if they think that people are going to be happy sitting back watching this if this goes away. And they've really not reading the room. They're not getting the tone. Something is odd. Something doesn't sit. There are too many contrary statements and actions. Too many contrary statements that just aren't compatible with each other. Yes, PSR does hamper us. We haven't got the player sales that some people have had. We haven't been able to force the player sales that some people seem to be able to. Seems to be no problem with Chelsea dealing with one of their sister clubs, yet we sell somebody to Saudi Arabia and all hell breaks loose. Why are we playing so nice? It's time to stop. It's time to stop playing nice. Chelsea are going on like they can do what the hell they want. And yes, they're going to get their knuckles wrapped by UEFA, but they'll take a fine because that's all it'll be. Now we need to see, do the Premier League have the balls to stand up to them? And I bet they don't. So it's time to stop playing nice and being, by the book. Where are the commercial deals that should have been opened now with partnerships in this region? Some of them were absolutely on the table, and then they've gone quiet. Guehi, the transfer, I can tell you categorically, last Thursday, that was a done deal. All the information that was coming to me, Steve, Stu, from 4 or 5 different places, it was a done deal. Not even close to done, it was done. There was stuff booked that you don't book unless it's a done deal. And then 4 hours later, it was off. There's something really at odds since June, whether there's been a night of the long knives moment where the execs have got together and gone to Piff and say, hey, these minor owners interfering with everything we're doing, it's making it difficult to cope, we need to find a solution. Whether they've had the whole PSR debacle hung on them. But I still can't accept an answer that PSR is a problem when the next moment they're talking about signing a player for single player for £70 million. That's bullshit. And it's not even a smoke screen. It's the dodgy end of a tab being put out in the rain. And I think, is Eddie part of the problem? Yes, I think he is. I think he's stubborn. I think he wants to do it his way. And I think he's also had the ears of Amanda and Mairdad, and I think that's carried weight. And his buffer's not there anymore. And so I think we have a bigger picture to look at. And if these guys care about Newcastle United, they've got to get together and find a way for them to make this work. And if they don't, they've got to find a way to make it work without whoever is seen as the drug shoot in the pack. But either way, this window has become an embarrassment. It's set off with great expectation and hope. And I think as a fan base, we've had the hope installed, sucked out of us, particularly with this public shambles with Palace. And I hope he gets what he wishes for, and that Guehi goes the way Zaha did, and they don't see a bloody penny of it. And, well, the money was on the table, tough tit. But I really don't care about Palace. I care more about Newcastle United. And I know it's not that long ago we're talking about we just want a team that tries. But that's not what we've been sold along with certain other things. And that seems just as far away these days when you can't even get a straight answer out of anybody at the club. God, we're even being held to ransom by some stupid idiot with a tiny bit of land that he wants to park his fucking car on match day.
Yeah. George, I make no apologies for the tone of this show, by the way, tonight. I set the standard with my rant, and I genuinely think that it's time, really, that we're honest. And I mean, a last-minute bid for Elanga, look, he's a decent player. It solves the problem if we bring Elanga in. The problem we've got at the moment is that in defence, Mitch has quite rightly said we're an injury away from a catastrophe. So we'll wait and see if anything develops with Elanga. We'll keep an eye on it over the next hour and a half. But we'll give George his say on what he feels about what's developed this week.
Well, it's a mess, isn't it? By any stretch of the imagination. I'll tell you where I am. Remember that horrible interview with Rafa when he was seething because Ashley wouldn't spend some money for him when we were looking for promotion, and he was absolutely seething. If Eddie Howe had been Spanish instead of English, I think he would have been seething today, because that's what came across to me. He had to field the most repeated questions time and time again. And however, I console myself because your lads are coming my way. You see, what will happen on Sundays, Darren Neils will go to the stack and he'll sing the Bladen races. and you have a few pints, and then you sing Newcastle, 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 and everything will be all right, won't it? Of course it will. But that's where we're at. We're being promised the earth and given absolutely nothing. And it's no coincidence to me that this whole saga started when Amanda and Mairdad went out of the door. Eddie lost his ear in the boardroom. The fans lost that ear in the boardroom with Amanda and Mairdad. And that can't be good. That can't be good. Can't be good for us especially. And also, you know, the negotiating skills that went with them haven't been replaced by any stretch of the imagination. Wherever Paul Mitchell brings, I haven't seen any negotiation skills so far, nor from Darren Neils either. It just absolutely awful. It couldn't be worse. We're as I say, we're back in an Ashley position where he promised the earth and give her nothing. Well, they've just done that this window. Promised to be the best club in the world, and we're looking like selling platers. We're looking like third division team, not a Premiership team. That's how bad it is to me. But you know, it's sad. And the other thing about the PSR, I'm glad you lads see it the same as me. It's an excuse at the moment. If anybody who can do simple maths looks at how much we got out of Europe last year, looks at how much we got out of our position in the Premier League, and that's over 100 million to spend straight away, never mind any other money. So, you know, and we're bidding 70 million for a player who is one of England's best, there's no question. And I keep going back to the point I made, is that he might not be worth 70 million on his own, but as an addition to our team to improve our team, well, if it's going to improve the team that much, then you break the bank and you bring them in. You've got to balance one against the other. But we haven't even done that. And as Steve so rightly says, we've allowed the Palace chairman to make hay in the press. The minute he started bleating to his friends in Fleet Street, we should have pulled out of the whole deal and told him to stick it. But we didn't. We made it look like we're desperate. To the point now, we are desperate because nobody in this window, well, don't know where it puts us. It certainly doesn't put us anywhere in the top of the Premiership. We're scrambling around the bottom somewhere with this performance, and it's just not good. Elanga, well, he might have been a tidy player one day. I'm not sure what he's like now. You know, it knocks on the head as well. The performance of Tonali on Wednesday night. You know, we all anticipated him coming back, and I was surprised at the fans forum on Monday how many people were down on him, saying, "Well, he's never done anything," and all this sort of thing. Well, I hope he answered your questions, lads, because he looked brilliant. The only thing that intrigued me, the next best midfielder on the pitch after him was Elliot Anderson. You know, it just mind-boggling where we're going at the moment. And it's not in a direction, it's not up. It's not even sideways. And as Neil says, if you stand still in football, you're on your way down. We've got the squad. If Eddie can get them together with the same sort of feeling as we had last year or the year before, we still have a squad good enough to get into the top four. But Steve Hasty said it the other night. Is there something wrong at St. James's Park? Well, Eddie hinted at it today himself that there'd been some internal strife, even in the dressing room. Was that strife to do with Amanda going? I bet it was. Because the lads have said, you know, Bruno wasn't happy, and Big Joe, after signing his contract and all of that, was really down to Amanda. He wouldn't have been absolutely happy. So there've been issues, and Eddie admitted it today in his press conference that things haven't been 100% in the dressing room this last couple of weeks. Well, it shows on the pitch. Wednesday night, if we'd have played 60 minutes at the pace and skill that we played the first 15 minutes, we would have been 4 or 5-0 in the lead by the time we got to 60 minutes. But we got one goal, 15 minutes, and we started to back off. back off. The finish were backing all the way back to St James's Park when we weren't even playing at home. It's just difficult to understand. And at the one stage, there was only Tonali and Longstaff who seemed to be interested in going forward in the game. So if there's something been happening, well, I hope to shake it off by Sunday, because this Spurs team's going to come ready and waiting for this time. They're not going to get caught cold like they did in previous visits. But it's just a shambles, and I know I got lots of pelters for the last couple of weeks because of saying stuff about Eels and stuff about this and that, and I was being negative. If I'm negative, it's in a critical friend sense, as Steve often says. Can't support a team for over 70 years like I do and bleed black and white. The trouble is, when I'm injured, like I feel at the moment, the blood goes all over, and that's not a nice sight, I tell you. Yeah, awful. If the best we can do in this window is Elanga, then Eels and Mitchell and others have questions to answer. Eddie Howe as well, I have to say. I agree with Neil. He can't dodge the column because he's a step away from it, but he's the one who's been apparently saying who he wants and who he doesn't want. So, yeah, I agree with you, Steve. It's just so upsetting to be in this position, and particularly in the position that we are at the moment, with an opportunity to do something special.
Joe, yeah, interesting. The Sky Sports ticker tape now is talking about Elanga. Newcastle in talks to sign Anthony Elanga, 22-year-old, obviously former protege of Manchester United, and at Nottingham Forest at the moment, plays up front and plays on the wing. So, it's talking around about the 30-35 million pound mark for him. It's a player in a position that we need strengthening. Some people saying, of course, he's no better than Miggy, but he's a younger lad. It's an interesting one that we'll keep an eye on it. But overall, how are you feeling, Joe, with the way this transfer window has turned out?
I don't know what time it is. I don't know whether I can answer that, Steve. I thought long gone with the transfer days like this of we couldn't quite get people over the line. We've tried. We'll look forward to the next window. Then we can't sign anyone in January because it's a particularly difficult window. I thought our takeover was kind of those days had gone. I understand there's PSR rules, and again, whether we're hiding behind it, whether there's a conspiracy theory to get Eddie Howe out, whether Paul Mitchell isn't actually very good at negotiating, whether Dan Ashworth's pinched our magical list of transfer targets and ran off with it. Who knows? As a football fan, I feel really gutted today. I was looking forward to some new signings. And just on your point on Anthony Elanga, if he signs tonight, I'll get behind him on Sunday because that's what we do. We support our team. But I just feel really, really deflated. It sounds a little bit like Steve Bruce or Alan Pardew. We're trying, we're looking, but we just can't get them over the line, etc. It just becomes a nonsense. I'm in a bit of a mood anyway because the football's been shit. I'm not having this, you don't need to play well to win and all the rest of it and stuff. I was really, really looking forward to this season. Really, really looking forward to it. I thought it was an opportunity to push on. And yes, it's only been 3 games. I get that. But I was reminded last week, I'd made a comment and I was again reminded to trust the process. And I kind of want someone to come on and tell me what the process actually is now. I understood the process of taking over the football club and righting all the wrongs of the last clown. But, we've been taken over for about 3 years or so now. So it was the process to oust our darling owners. Was the process to piss our manager off? Was the process to bring in the best director of football in the game, only to let him go for nout? Was the process to bring in a load of free transfers? Some of them arguably will help the first team, e.g. Lloyd Kelly, and the rest, as you said, I don't think we'll ever see them in a Newcastle United shirt. And was the process to get us a nice new Adidas kit, but leave us all feeling like this? Because if that was the process is bollocks. And I'm sick of hearing about the process. So what I wanted to see today was some investment. I wanted to see us sign some better footballers, not only because that would enhance our team, but what does it do? We're almost celebrating the fact that we kept Anthony Gordon and we kept Alex Isak and we kept Bruno Guimaraes at the football club, and arguably Sven Botman had he not have been terribly injured. I'll tell you something now. If we're not in the Champions League next season, this time next year, we'll be talking about how nice it was to have Bruno and how good Alex Isak will look when he's playing for Real Madrid, because they're not going to stay, are they? So I thought this was about building. I thought it was about moving forward. I thought it was about getting us back to the promised land that we'd been promised. And here I am with you lot, and I'm sure everybody else just feeling absolutely gutted that we'll churn out the same 11 on Sunday, and we'll be churning out that same 11 for the next 8 months. So I'm sick as a chip, Steve. I'll be honest. Yeah, if Elanga comes, great. Let's see what he's got to do, and it's a welcome addition to the squad, as such. But yeah, I just feel really flat. And your point earlier of the feeling about this show tonight, I'm sat here looking at the prices and stuff, and there's a part of me that's just thinking, I can't be bothered. Like, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? So I'm happy to be proved wrong. I'm happy to be challenged, although I don't really care. We've got 4 or 5 hours left of the window. So if Darren Eales, if this is our transformational transfer window, we can live in hope that we're going to sign a couple of footballers. Surely we didn't put all our eggs in one basket. Surely this whole summer was not about Mark Guehi. There was no guarantee we were going to sign him anyway. If we really, really, really wanted him, getting our pants pulled down or not, if they want 80 million, why can't we just give him 80 million? If that's going to break our football club, if it's going to wreck relationships across the coaching staff and the board, what's another 5 million? Because I thought we had it. And now I'm wondering if we do, or if we do, why aren't we spending it? So there's more questions than answers as usual. And like George said, let's see what our chief exec does on Sunday in the stack. Because I don't really feel like celebrating at the moment. I'll be genuinely honest with you. So yeah, deflated, confused, and what is there to be hopeful about? It's another season of the same players playing the same formation. The pressure will build on Eddie Howe naturally. I messaged Steve Hasty in the week. In my opinion, if this is the squad, the pressure will build on Eddie Howe. And it's starting to be written all over his face. He doesn't appear to be a happy camper, and yet he's the one who's getting wheeled out to say, we're trying, there's another 6 hours left of the transfer window. To quote Neil Mitchell, it's all bollocks.
Yeah, Steve Hasty, last but by no means least, just getting your opinion on this transfer window. It could still see a little bit of business being done on the ins and outs. Still hope that Ryan Fraser's deal to Southampton will go through, although that probably still has a twist or turn to go through. But yeah, Elanga potentially coming in from Forest as well.
Yeah, a name that was mentioned, 3 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden, with a matter of 4 hours to go, his name suddenly appears on the scene again, and we're supposed to be scrambling around putting a late bid in. That for me tells you that it's mad panic time at Newcastle United. It's you know what, lads, we're going to have to buy somebody. We're going to have to buy someone. We're going to have to bring someone in just to appease the fans. That's the way that comes over. When you end up with a situation with a player whose name was mentioned, as I say, 3 weeks ago, in passing, then was dismissed, and now all of a sudden his name crops up. It's such short notice. That for me tells you panic stations at Newcastle. And panic stations not to appease Eddie Howe, but to appease us as supporters, so that those who have got any doubt in their mind or questioning anything to do with the hierarchy above and beyond Eddie Howe can then be nipped in the bud, because they say, look, we've got one. The rest of it, oh, really sorry, lads, that didn't happen, but we can't do it. Where are we standing? I've written a few little things down, and I've also been noting as the lads been talking some of the questions down the side here that have been popping up. Some great points, by the way. Somebody said that they're annoyed because of the Saudi League spending money like it's confetti, but we aren't. Well, there's no PSR restrictions in the Saudi League, don't forget, so they can spend whatever they like. That's not going to, the Saudi League money is not going to impact Newcastle United. Yes, I do agree that 70 million is an overspend on Guehi, but somebody also asked, what do I think of John Sinclair's accent? I think it's bloody great, man. So there again, we're trying to show that we're all linked in. It's fascinating, isn't it? I picked up on something that Joe said, and you're right, Joe. My question is, whose process are we now following? We've been said, trust the process. Well, whose process am I trusting? I trusted it when Maya and Amanda were there, because I felt as though when I heard something from them, it was genuine. It was coming from the soul, if you like. But now I'm not hearing anything from Darren Eales other than what we heard singing in the stack and what we heard back in January. I always thought Amanda and Amir were part of the equation. I don't feel comfortable yet with Paul Mitchell, because I don't know anything. I've barely heard him speak. Somebody questioned earlier about, he's got a great track record. Well, I jotted them down. He bought, if you look at these 10 signings that people rave about, he bought Stephen Davis in 2012, Trippier in 2015, Dele Alli in 2015, Alderweireld in 2015, Nkunku was in 2019, so that's fairly recent, 5 years ago. Mukiele 2018, Mane 2014, Son 2015, Tadic 2014, and Daniel Olmo was 2020. But of those, 3 of them came from clubs, Leipzig, where he already was. The rest of them came from Southampton to Tottenham, or came into Tottenham when he was there, and he was at Southampton, and he bought Davis, he bought Alderweireld, Tadic, he then moved them on. So, in terms of what he's done since the last decent signing that everybody's saying he's got a great track record about, it was 4 seasons ago. Nothing since. So, I'm looking and thinking, right, well, is there this big kingpin that knows an awful lot about signings? And Mitch summed it up. There's some fantastic deals to be had because of the state of French football, but we haven't picked up on any of them. So I'm questioning it there. I'm looking at what we heard at the press conference. I've jotted a few things down. Yes, we do hear what we want to hear, but we on this panel were accused of that a couple of weeks ago. We were accused of just hearing what we wanted to hear and this type of thing on the other side of the fence. And then you look at what's going on at Chelsea. You look at selling another player to themselves, along with the hotels and along with the women's team that they've sold to themselves, and yet nothing's said. All of these things are just pressures that build up on us supporters as time goes on. From my reckoning, I think we bought Lewis Hall twice. I think we bought him before the transfer window, and then we bought him after the transfer window, so-called in July, because from my reckoning, if I read it correctly, Chelsea seemed to have Lewis Hall down as last year's PSR, and yet we've got him down as this year's PSR. I don't know what went on then. All of these are confusing, and all these are the sort of things that nobody in the press picks up on when they're at a press conference with Eddie Howe. Nobody turned around to Eddie Howe and said, Trippier's no longer a captain. Is that because he's not going to play regular? Or was the decision yours, or was the decision made further up in the club? Because now it looks like Trippier's staying. We're not hearing that Trippier's moving on because Bayern Munich haven't come back in for him, and nor has anyone else. So all of these things are just floating around in the ether and being allowed to float around in the ether. And I think we can have a pop at We's Keys Louise or We's Agendas Louise, because I think she did have an agenda about
Yeah.
Finale this week, there's no question. And I'm looking now and I'm thinking, well, come on, the press guys, it's your job. It's not us on podcasts to rant and rave, but it's your jobs to ask the questions that we can then pick up on. And I don't think anyone's ever tested Eddie in a press conference. None of the local lads have tested in press conference by digging further into some of the points that Mitch has raised, for example, because there is something going on at that football club. There's an undercurrent at the football club. There's something not right. We've talked about it a couple of weeks ago and we got slagged off about it. But I think that I think it's coming home to roost now that there's a power struggle. There was a power struggle within the boardroom to do with me and Amanda in particular. And I think there's a power struggle now that involves the higher ups and the coaching staff, Eddie in particular, in terms of the direction that they want to take the club. And I think if I was a cynical man, which I am, I suppose, in this particular instance, I would say someone somewhere is trying to play something out here with an agenda in mind that works to someone else's advantage. It doesn't seem to be the advantage of the football club on the pitch at the moment, because we're being left with 4 signings, a goalkeeper who, let's face it, could very well find himself back in Nottingham Forest as part of this Elanga deal, because that would be the most craziest thing that could happen. We've brought the young lad in from Sheffield United. Howe's played him 10 minutes, if that. He turned up and he nearly got on the bench last weekend at home, the last home game, and then he was pushed back on. We've got Kelly for nothing, and we've got Ruddy, who came in as a 5th choice goalkeeper, who was on the bench on Wednesday night. So that's it. That's the sum of that transfer activity, Steve. And people wonder why we're cynical. People are wondering why we're questioning. Somebody else also asked about the big Anik meet. Well, the big Anik meet that didn't take place. There was a big meet somewhere else that took place, but that big meet ended up simply being a power struggle for the boardroom, which resulted in me and Amanda moving on a matter of weeks later. So that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, well, there we go. We've all had our say. Lots of people having their say in the chat, and to be honest, I can't disagree with most of you. Some people using this opportunity to have snide digs at us. That's your entitlement to sit in the chat and have a little pop at us in the chat. Other people deciding to have a go at Stu when he's not on the panel. Again, that's your prerogative. Bit disappointed in some people who should know better with talk about charity bets, because at the end of the day, Stu put the charity bet out to a couple of people on this channel. One was a journalist and one is somebody who does the fans forum, and neither of them had the balls to take him up on the bet. If they had, then you would have been picking the charity for Stu Penman's money to go to for the charity. So from my perspective, I don't think it's a night for cheap digs. I don't think it's a night for chucking trust the process back at us, because it's not us who make the decision on the transfer window. It's the people at the football club who've let us down collectively. We're all in the same boat. We're all the same fans who have to go to the match on Sunday and potentially see Newcastle, may get a good performance. We might suddenly win 3-0. And George mentioned earlier, things do change. He was talking about our chief executive getting up and singing and everything will be all right. But if you go to St James's Park and Newcastle suddenly win 3-0 on Sunday, everybody's in a lot better mood and people aren't thinking about the transfer window and you crack on. It could have the opposite effect, though. We could lose 3-0 on Sunday and we could lose a centre-half through injury. And then suddenly it is doom and gloom and everybody's looking. It's all hypothetical, of course. And that is all my opinion and what could and what may or may not happen. But, remember what happened last season. And don't forget, Newcastle United have got 4 points in the bank and are through to the next round of the Carabao Cup. But we haven't played well. We haven't played well at all. There is something not right. And if you can't see it, you're blinkered or you're blind. And it's as simple as that. There is something clearly not right. Is it what's going on behind the scenes? It sure as hell looks like it. And for me, we've lost that kind of positivity that Amanda brought to the football club. That's been pulled away from us. You know what I mean? We got behind her 3 years ago, and everyone was focused on her, and she came out and she knew what to say, and she said the right things. There's a lot of narratives being played out there. And I think some people get sucked in by the narratives as well, There's Mick, for starters. Amanda's fault we're in the PSR hole. Who says that, Mick?
No.
Where's
God.
that come from? Who's created that? Who's created that story?
Steve, that is a possible scenario.
It is a possible scenario, yeah.
We don't know.
That's not a fact. It's not a fact, Mitch, and it's not.
We don't know.
Yes, and it's not a no. Yeah, go on. No, go on, Mitch. You have your say, Mitch, because I'm just saying we don't always agree on things.
No, just what I'm saying is there are a number of possible scenarios in this, and none of them are good. None of them work out for the betterment of Newcastle United Football Club. That's the problem. We've done well to hold on to the players we've held on to. We've done well, however, there's still a suggestion that the whole PSR thing hinged on Bruno's clause being triggered, and everybody could walk away going, well, it was our fault.
Yeah.
And then there's this persistent Gordon to Liverpool thing that hangs around, that's being held together by mainly the Merseyside press. You look very happy in the photo after the Forest game, I've got to say. For me, that didn't look like somebody who was unhappy. But again, the suggestion is that was done from inside the club also, offered out. And who's making that decision? And yeah, I'd be pissed if Gordon had gone, or if Bruno had gone, or if Isaac had gone. We've done well to hold the blue chip players down. But again, the suggestion was we were looking to build. We've had a PSR debacle, which nobody has stuck their hands up and said, this is what went wrong. I don't think they ever will. It's convenient, or it looks convenient, that Amanda Ahmed had been shifted out, and therefore some people can, and quite rightly could, because it is a possible scenario, hang that on them cocking things up from a PSR perspective. But who let them? There should have been somebody in the... I don't know who you are saying before, but Stu's big enough to take a little bit of criticism, mate. After his sell, I'm quite sure I'm not going to sit and defend him. I'll let him do it on Sunday.
Tomorrow. 3:30.
And so, we're all big enough to take criticism. That's why we've spent years sticking our head above the parapet, trying to do things for the betterment of fans, setting things up like the trust and the food bank between two we're here. That's why we do it. We love Newcastle United, and we love the community, the fan base, and everything we're involved in, everything we've grown up with, everything that was installed in me by the man on your left and his father before him, because that's what this club's all about. That's why we get passionate about it. And I get tired of the repeated infighting that goes on with our fan base. And that's part of the root of the bloody problem. If we were gunslingers, we'd have no toes left, we'd have shot our foot so many fucking times. And it really does get me annoyed. Yes, there's clearly something going on in Newcastle United, but we don't know what it is. There are a number of potential scenarios. There's definitely something going on right now within the halls of power in Newcastle United. We don't know what it is, but we're all entitled to speculate and wonder. Like I said before, we're being held to ransom over a little bit of bloody land outside the East Stand. Why? Because everybody's got this perception Saudi will just pay up. So that's everybody from chairman of a football club through to some dickhead who owns a plot of land and he thinks he can make a bit of coin on it. And he's actually putting the safety of our fans in danger by erecting that fence.
God knows what will be there on Sunday.
Well, I hope he is. I hope he's not parked there again. And this is the thing. It's really frustrating. We're all frustrated, but here we are again, turning the guns inward and having a little pop at each other. It's crazy. It tires me out.
Nottingham Forest have rejected Newcastle's bid for Anthony Elanga. So there we go. Go on, George. You had something to say, George?
Well, two things. And the first one is Neil's right. Stu's big enough to defend himself. But I go back to where I started. If you look at the money that we had, it won in Europe, the money we won for our place in the Premiership, that's over 100 million. So Stu's not 100 miles away from where we should have been, especially if we're still able to find 70 million for a single player from Crystal Palace. But I'll leave that for Stu to sort out. And And well, it's the frustration. He's absolutely right. This is Newcastle United down the ages. You know, we seem to get on the right track, and all of a sudden the wheels come off, and we're going back down the wrong way again. For goodness sake, don't let this happen this time. And it's you know, it's easy to be the happy when everything's going right. I want to be happy all the time. I keep saying I'm a greedy little duck. I want to see Newcastle United do really well. I've even painted me bloody rattle to go to Wembley, would you believe? So yeah, you know, so it's not all doom and gloom, but the basics of this program and others is we just want to say about Newcastle United, and that's all we're doing, just having what say.
I think you're right, John. I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to keep the positivity for weeks and weeks and weeks, while all around us things have been tumbling around our heads, and we've heard so much that we haven't disclosed, that we haven't broken, simply because we felt as a collective that if we went down that path, the negativity that people would think that we were throwing out on this platform would have just caused an absolute storm. And now we're sitting here and we're going, you know what? That's what it was 4 weeks ago. That's what it was 8 weeks ago. That's what it was 12 weeks ago. This is spun out exactly as we were told by our sources it would, and so on and so on. And that's the way that we've sort of tried to manage this, because we've managed it among ourselves, and we've sat back and thought, you know, we can't break any sort of confidences that we have with various people who have given us a little of bit of an inside track. We can't really disclose that because we haven't got the substance behind it. It might come over as simply as hearsay, but now probably 90% of what we heard over that since probably, I would say, February, Mitch, if not a little bit earlier. Certainly some of the things we heard in before the end of the January transfer window have now raised their heads and actually been implemented and introduced as the weeks and months have gone on. And now it's kind of frustrating for us that we're now seeing that, and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, can you imagine what the uproar would have been if I'd said 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago what I've said today? Because I'm not, it's not just something that's landed on my plate today, it's something that I heard weeks and weeks ago, and now it's the right time to say it. You know?
That's why I said a couple of weeks ago, if we passed on everything we'd heard, we'd have everybody rocking in the corner with a bloody comfort blanket, a good bottle of scotch and a bag of glue. You know, it would drive you beyond drink. And you think we'd take everything that we get with a pinch of salt. And some people are exceptionally generous with what they pass on. Yeah. Because they know will protect them. As people could lose their bloody jobs and livelihoods out of it, people being loose-lipped. It's ridiculous. And so, but when it starts to add up that things aren't going the way, they're not quite what we were painted as, it gets very, very difficult to keep the positivity. I did have a little chuckle to myself when we were accused of being negative after Eddie's press conference a couple of weeks ago. I felt like saying, negative? Do you want negative? Have a look at this bloody message here. And it is difficult. It's difficult for it. We always want to try and look at the positives and look at the brighter side of things, because you want to hope for the best. Hope's one of the few things we had left. Once that was restored, it's difficult to feel that it's been a little bit blunted.
Yeah, I think the other thing is when you sit back on the fence and you go, you know what, let's take it back to the time when Dan Ashworth left, and was put on gardening leave. And at that point, it was obvious that Dan Ashworth would not be coming back. So from that point onward, it was always most people's understanding that Newcastle United will now be out there. They'll not be able to appoint anyone to replace Stan Ashworth, but they'll certainly have someone targeted, someone lined up, and that person who's lined up will almost have signed on the dotted line, and everything will be in place, bar the holding up of the scarf, which we all know doesn't happen with the sporting director, but you know where I'm coming from. And you would hope that behind the scenes, that person and the rest of the management team would have been working on where the new signings are coming with, you know, getting a flavour of where what the direction the club will now head, how it's going to be structured. All those discussions will be taking place with Eddie. We're going to say, right, it's going to be a new regime, Eddie. We're going to, this is the sporting director come in. This is what his role is going. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to manage the transfer window, etc., etc. This will be your role. This is how we're going to integrate with you. This is how we're going to communicate with you. So you'd expect all that to have happened. What it appears in hindsight, we're now looking at it and going, well, you know what? Actually, what's happened is Mitchell arrived on day one and they went, oh, hello. Didn't expect you coming through the door. What's going on here? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're the sporting director. Oh, right. Nice to meet you. Well, you've got a couple of months in which you can sort this out, and that's where we are. And you're thinking, that doesn't come over as very, very professional. It doesn't come over. It's not the expectation we had. I think the vast majority of people presumed that when Mitchell arrived, he came in with a dossier and work that he had presented to the board at some point in time to get the job and said, this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we're going to do it. This is where it's going to come from. And whether he had the interview 3 months earlier or 4 months earlier or 4 weeks earlier, there was a shape and a pattern, and everything could have been started to have been put in place by those people behind the scenes. Instead, it would appear that some sort of an infight took place. Mirdad and Amanda were out. The rest of them have sat there going, oh, well, yeah, they've gone. Yeah. But don't worry, we've got this and we've got that. And yeah, it'll all come good in the end. And then we hear that profit and sustainability is the biggest thing to hit the football club since Mike Ashley and his baseball bat, you know, and it just all seems to have deteriorated. There's nothing positive come out of the football club other than the opening of the stack. And that's a positive aspect for some people and not for others, because some people will be going to the stack and some people couldn't give a monkey's chuff about the stack. It's just another place to go and drink, as far as I'm concerned, or not go and drink, as other people might feel. So that's the bit that's missing. That's the continuity, and that's where it's been badly managed by people at the top of the football club. Quite happy to talk about, you know, this is the new kit, and I'm here to open the new temporary shop, and I'm here to open the stack. But very, very little, nothing else of substance that shows a true leadership, if you like, in terms of this is a 250, 350, 400 million pound turnover organisation. We said it under Ashley when we talked about 100 million, and people were quick to point out, well, that's just local Tesco. That sort of turnover, you know, you've got about as much responsibility of the manager of Tesco down on in terms of turnover as they have down at the Metro Centre, you know. But this is where we're at. These people are getting paid big money to take the football club forward. And yes, lots of things can happen off the pitch, but what makes the football club grow is what's happening on the pitch. And at the moment, those 4 signings that we've got and the players that we've lost don't look as though Newcastle have stepped forward. Don't look as though we've made that next step up the next ladder from finishing 8th in the league for something that's going to help us to finish 5th or 4th. I might be proved wrong. It might be totally the opposite. But on paper today, after some very mediocre performances, and probably the only good thing, apart from a very, very early goal, the only decent spell we had on Wednesday night was the last 20 minutes when we were playing a second-rate Nottingham Forest team. It was basically their reserves, who literally ran out of steam after 70 minutes, and we still couldn't put the ball in the back of the net in the last 20 with the chances we had. We then go into the penalty shootout and we win, and very, very close to going out, but for, you know, the fact that, you know, at one point we're 3-2 down on the penalties. So it just goes to show that there's an awful lot to be built on. There's an awful lot of work needs to be done. But is that work being done at the top of the house, or is it all being landed now? And it's a case of, right, well, get on with it now, Eddie. That's your lot. We'll do our bit. It's it's frustration, I suppose. That's the point that I'm getting over. We're all frustrated because it's PSR, it's FFP, it's transfer window. That's all we've had for the last God knows how many weeks. And the lack of activity just builds up and it explodes. And some people are happy, some people are disappointed, some people are angry. And I think it's coming over on all of those three things, on both the comments that are popping up and the looks on our faces, quite frankly.
Yeah, we're well over an hour into the show, 1,230 watching. Never take that for granted. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you're watching on Twitter, please jump onto YouTube and hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Just search NUFC Matters. We've stuck a poll in the YouTube chat. Are you happy with the transfer window? 2 answers, yes or no. Place a vote in there, and we'll have a look at that after the ads. We'll be back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to our NUFC Matters fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. All excursions included, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, a 2-crew driver and courier. It's a local family company, and you can find them at www.unitedgrouptravel.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video. That's the like button. It does help us grow. And click the share button. Help share to your social media. If you want to join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month, then hit the join button under this video today. We also help the food bank on this channel. Visit nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. It takes you to the matchday bucket where you can donate some money virtually. Some events for your diary in aid of Dementia Matters. The Long Sands will be reforming and be supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band at the Cluny in Newcastle on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets are £15 pre-sale from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January 2025. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com or from Voucher. And an evening with the Entertainers takes place on the 24th of January 2025. Telephone the box office 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge at the Gateshead Leisure Centre is now open. 7 talk-ins for £99. Joe Allen will be hosting talk-ins with Lee Clark, John Anderson, Steve Howe, Darren Peacock, Supermac, Steve Watson, John Beresford, all between the dates of January and July. £99 for 7 talk-ins, newcastlelegends.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our NUFC Matters fanzine, £20 for 4 issues with all proceeds going to Dementia Matters. If you live overseas, it is £50 for 4 issues. To order now, go to newcastlelegends.com.
And just a reminder on the fanzine, we've got 60 subscribers. We are only going to print 200 copies, so please don't miss out. newcastlelegends.com. All proceeds going to Dementia Matters. Beverly at UGT Travel has agreed to sponsor all the issues. Some great articles already in from me, Steve, from George, from Stu Penman, Supermark, Gibbo, everybody who features on the channels has contributed. A few other people as well. We've given a page, obviously the United Group travel advertising page for their sponsorship, which which goes without saying. We support. Show Races and the Red Card. Been in touch with Jed as well. We've given them a page in each issue. So there's lots of positivity in this magazine. Not like the show tonight, unfortunately. Every now and then we need to blow our gasket as well, and I think we've well and truly done that in the first hour. I've seen a few people saying continue with the rant, but don't do tweet of the week. I'm afraid I need a little bit of humour. We've had plenty of that. I love this. Very simple. Man United, Black Eyed Peas, Prince Andrew. What have they got in common? Useless since Fergie left. Fantastic. Anyone who watches Squid Game, try Chelsea. They've got squad game, green light, red light. That's probably the only way they're going to sort that player situation out. And Domino's Pizza, always good. A little bit like Paddy Power. Remember to buy your United mates a pizza today to brighten their day.
Very good.
I did like that as well. Good to see the Scouse Mackhams struggling early doors. Sean Dyche is 007. No time to win. No wins, no goals scored, and 7 goals conceded. And congratulations to the Manchester United keeper. Thanks to Sarah for this one. Onana becomes the first keeper to concede 60 goals in under 40 Premier League games.
Oh, yeah, me.
Some record this. And this, you often get some great photos. This was fantastic. Not a mobile phone in sight, just a man and his pie watching the mighty Leeds United. Goal celebration, he didn't drop his pie and had time to pose for a photograph, which I thought was brilliant. Back on Merseyside, Ugly Camel found this one. There's a shopping centre called Liverpool 1. So Everton Football Club have opened a club shop there and they've called it Everton 2. So the official address for the shop is called Everton 2 Liverpool 1.
That is top class.
Drop the shit out.
It is.
Quick thinking.
Unfortunate photograph here.
Hey.
And we might not have had any signings, but we've had a lot of signs, lads. Prepare to be amazed with some stupidity. Dogs welcome inside. Please tie children to post out front. Do not click button with genitalia. Cameras are watching.
Oh, right.
And this one, I'll go back to that one later. Meanwhile, in Oklahoma, welcome to Pecker's Cutoff. Population 2.
For now, anyway.
And if elevator doesn't move, do a small jump. It should move after that.
Oh, God.
That's reassuring.
Okay.
And this was sent last week. Didn't get time to get to it. 115 players versus 115 charges at 4:30. That was, of course, Chelsea versus Man City.
Brilliant.
Interesting sign here. Do not eat aluminium or you'll sheet metal.
Oh.
And no bones about it. It's going to be a great day.
Oh.
Vince, the sign guy, clearly puts one of them up every week. Emergency phone not installed. Please do not have an emergency at this location. And notice this is the back door. The front door is around the back. Another one from Jimmy Moore. Welcome to Friggin' Howe.
Finger and Howe.
Yeah, that's right. And no horses allowed in bathrooms. Anyone found washing a horse in this bathroom will be charged cleaning costs.
Oh, dear me.
Sounds like there's a repeat offender there.
And this door is alarmed. Someone put underneath what startled it. And great, this ground control, Major Toms.
Brilliant.
Major Tom.
And Balford cleaners, drop your pants here and you'll receive prompt attention.
I'm sure you will.
Where's that?
America. Toilet out of order. Please use floor below. I'd hate to see the puddle there. And stiff nipples, refrigeration and air conditioning. License to chill.
Oh dear me.
Jimmy's been sending quite a few of these, as you can imagine. If you pee on the seat, I will scrub it with your toothbrush. Love, ma'am. And somebody was bored in the supermarket this week.
Yeah,
very good. Very good. And this one from Ian Hull. Note to self. Find out story behind Chicken Man and why he can't fish here. New owner. No one permitted to fish. Sorry, but this includes you, Chicken Man. Very strange. Springer for sale. The bastard keeps digging up the garden. And we've had a couple of name ones, which I know people do enjoy out there. I suspect his dad was a mechanic. 10 mil socket. And this guy, how much money do you have left after Christmas shopping? Fukal, mate. Couple of jokes for people out there as well. I thought I saw Michael J. Fox at my local florist. I'm not sure if it was him, though, as he had his back to the fuchsias.
Oh, dear.
Oh. And I accidentally swallowed some Scrabble tails and now experiencing constant vowel movements. The next trip to the bathroom could spell disaster.
Very clever, that.
And a Scouser goes on the Antiques Roadshow with a very rare vase. Fiona Bruce asks, how did you acquire the vase? The Scouser says, it was handed down to me, Fiona Bruce. Where from? The Scouser replies, an upstairs window. My daughter asked, I hope you're going to shave up that stupid mustache before we go on holiday. It's embarrassing. I was stunned. It's the bravest thing I've ever heard anyone say to the wife. And why does the Norwegian Navy have barcodes on the side of their ships? So when they come back to port, they can Scandinavian.
Oh.
And a man asked me for $1. I told him I only carry big bills. He said, give me one of those. So I gave him my electric bill.
Very good, Jimmy.
And wife texts husband on a cold winter morning. Windows frozen, won't open. Husband texts back, gently pour some lukewarm water over it, and then gently tap edges with hammer. Wife texts back 10 minutes later. The computer's really messed up now. Yes, Mark. Soda pop kid. Yep, very good. A selfie in the old days. Excellent. And this is a great photo. He says, just try looking at your shoes the same way again. People now will be going to their cupboards tonight looking at the shoes. I've got in touch with my inner self today. That's the last time I buy cheap toilet paper.
No.
Coming to the last few. The truth will set you free, except on Facebook, where it gets you a 30-day ban. Never a truer word said. And if you see a toilet in your dream, guys, don't use it. Good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't hide a crime scene, just pretend you're the victim.
Get back to the Abbey.
And it is Oasis weekend. So the Ticketmaster queue and Oasis tickets go on sale will probably look something like this tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Very good. And Mark Wallace again. If you're bored, try this, he says. Tie these balloons to your car and drive like a bat out of hell and watch the drama unfold. We don't encourage anybody to do that at home, Mark, but thank you for your tweet of the week. Fisher Price's new kit has come out for Christmas.
Oh, dear me.
And Gary Scott, brilliant this one. How lazy are you? Me. Well, I figured out you don't actually have to assemble these things. And another review, guys, as if someone put this as their review for Pizza Addict on Just Eat. I will mark you 5 out of 5 for everything. However, my girlfriend asked me to order food and I put in the additional notes, please delay this by 1 hour as I've had a line and I can't eat, but yet you still turned up on time. Please send me them if you've got anyone who can find them. They are really good. And there's some excellent ones out there. Okay, here's your top 3, guys. Ronnie, good one this, not tweet of the week though. Has anyone ever had a pet taxidermy before? And if so, how much did it cost? Joe Lane said, I stuffed a pussy once, cost me a house and 2 cars. Number two was this one. Jimmy Moore, tweet of the week. It was alive when you bought it. Very good. Very good, Jimmy. The winner was this week. It's a football-related one. Davy Drew. This hotel is on the Isle of Wight. I've now got to check in and then get the ferry back. 11 miles from Pompey. My arse. It's a bit, basically, he'd looked at the map, seen it was only 11 miles from Portsmouth, didn't realise he was on a completely different island. So that is the tweet of the week. Brilliant stuff. If you've got any, send them in. We'll feature them next week on the show. Join the Facebook group, join the Facebook page, like the Facebook page, or send to me on X at Steve Rate, and we will feature them on Tweet of the Week. I do really feel like we should talk about Tonali and football. I will mention this. I don't want us to take too long because Mitch has mentioned it a couple of times. When you go to St James's Park, you are still more likely to see this on Sunday. This is a bizarre situation, lads. And as I say, I don't want to drag too much time out of this. But for those of you who haven't seen it, that is the photograph of a parking bay which has been put up outside the East Stand. So any of you who enter the East Stand may well see this at the weekend. Now, this answers the question as to what on earth that survey was about that came out by Newcastle United last week, where we were all asked about various things outside certain section of the ground. Had we had to walk around stuff and this, that, and the other? It's clearly been the erection of this particular parking bay. There's also a sign being placed on one of the doors at the ground: no parking, private. So this is real. This isn't a joke. This is somebody who owns this little stretch of land outside St James's Park. How he acquired it, when he acquired it, questions which, again, probably you'll be able to find quite easily from Land Registry. I certainly haven't done that, but, you know, it's in the hands of the City Council. Cheon Wura has been involved. I've seen her tweet and come up with that. But there is a link, of course, to, you know, who owns the land. And it turned out that it's a guy who, you know, there's a guy on there. Again, I'm going to, you know, keep his identity silent. You can go and search that up. It's very easy to go and find who it is. What I don't want is the guy feeling that we're, you know, whipping up some kind of storm for him personally and him then accusing us of doing that. So, but pointing out the fact that this is outside St James's Park is well within our rights. But yeah, I mean, this is a strange situation, Mitch. It really is. And again, in some, you know, it's a balls up. It's something hovering over the back of my mind. This is only my idea, but it just makes you wonder whether our former owner has had a little bit of mischievous fun and sold this particular bit of land off, you know, at some point before he left the club as a little, you know, just as a little thing which people wouldn't have even looked at. But what's your views on this? It's bizarre.
There's been a load of odd little bits of land in and around St James's Park. If you remember the Ransom strip, which the old deer held at the Gallagher end, that stopped any thoughts of expansion there for a long, long time. And she held on to that simply because it was the strip of land that had the advertising hoardings on it, and she got the income from the advertising hoardings and didn't want to let the income go. And did the same thing with the club there. But, you know, this bit of land historically may well have been owned and connected to something else, not necessarily the club per se. And may not have nothing to do with Ashley. There's interesting bits of land now that the club are talking about potential expansion, potential what have you, where they'll look at, say, Lee's Terrace, and they'll have surveyed everybody on that side about what their feeling is about would you be prepared to sell to the club, etc. I just see somebody who sees an opportunity and has found ways to be awkward, and it is currently being very successful at that. And it's something which to the club it'd be out. Yeah, if you want another £1 million, then there it is. Now sod off. But there's principles involved in that, and there's other things there, and now that poses more than an inconvenience to fans who want to get into the ground at those turnstiles. It's dangerous, particularly with a sort of a shin-high fence outside of those turnstiles when we know how busy that part of the ground gets pre and post match. And I think, yes, you have to applaud the ingenuity, but that's somebody who doesn't give an absolute flying fuck about me, you, or anybody else. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
And that's a shame.
I had one ear on Mitch and one ear on somebody who's finally turned up from Sky Sports at Newcastle United's training ground. That's the first time today that anybody has been seen at St James's Park. Clearly, the Elanga thing has forced their hand and made them have to get a taxi up there. There's Sooty. The story behind Elanga.
He says he's a twat.
The story behind Elanga is a bit more complicated than them just knocking it back. Apparently, what Forest wanted was they wanted a player in exchange. So they've got a player in mind that they want to take from Newcastle United as well as money. So maybe there's still legs in that, but Newcastle are reluctant to let anyone go to Nottingham Forest as part of that deal. That's what they've just reported on Sky. So that's up-to-date news. So yeah, George, this fence outside the East Stand, mate, it's a bizarre situation. And you know, Mitch is right, isn't he? It's crazy. You know, putting people's health and safety at risk.
Well, I'm puzzled as to where's the university in this, because Leazes Terrace is a university, and that's right outside Leazes Terrace. You know, it's right outside the houses. Sorry?
It's owned by a Saudi owner now.
Right.
Terrace.
Okay. Well, I thought it would be. You know, you've just said where I was forecasting when the takeover happened. That's what would end up. The important thing is already been said by you, Steve, and by Neil. When I come out of the ground with Steve, usually on my way home, we're coming in the opposite direction, and we're met by a wall, an absolute wall, usually of away fans leading it, coming down that piece of the ground, right against that where that fence is, and at that height, with a crowd, you know, nose to tail against one another, how many people are going to go arse over tip over that fence? Because if it was me, I'd have me lawyers onto it straight away, and wherever money he gets off Newcastle United, I would want me share for me bruises and me scratches, because that's what will happen. That it's, you know, it's not it's not just a paling fence. It's substantial. It's drilled into the bloody road. You know, you're not gonna be able to knock that over just by walking into it. People will go headlong over the top of that fence on the way out of the ground. And as I said, Steve and I quite often get stuck there trying to make our way across to the Trent House or somewhere if I'm getting a taxi. And it's always chock-a-block there. And I just think it's somebody is fastened onto the fact he's going to make a few bob out of the Saudis. Well, I suspect that he might have to spend more money to get anything out of them than he'll end up in his pocket. And as I say, if I was to be falling over that fence, he'd be getting a bill from my lawyers as well, I tell you. So it's bizarre, absolutely bizarre, and just a nonsense. I can't believe. I mean, remember when Ashley was buying up everything? Surely when they were buying up bits of land and these people were looking at that, they must have had a look at that bit of land, surely. You would have thought so. But
his people missed a 50 million mortgage on the East Stand that was repayable on purchase. So
right. So they weren't as sharp as they told them they were. Yeah. Well, that answers the question. Well, it's just, you know, one of these bizarre little things that come up now and again, but a very dangerous and bizarre little thing at certain times. And the certain time, worst time from my point of view, end of the match when the away fans are streaming down that piece of road and on their way home, and there will be dozens of them who go arse over tip over that little fence. By Jove, as I say, if it was me, they'd be getting a nice letter from my solicitors.
Yeah, I've just seen Muzz's tweet there. That guy's never been on Sky Sports all afternoon. Like he may well have been at the training ground, but he's certainly never been on. I know there's been very little report, but usually they would go to Newcastle. I mean, they've made plenty noise about Mark Guehi all day, yet not gone to the guy and given it from a Newcastle perspective. So I really think it's strange. Yeah, I mean, Joe, this fence thing is just another little caveat in a week of stupid news. You know, I mean, I'm not even going to go down the Sir John Hall interview thing where, you know, he was, you know, Robert Jenrick's been in the ground and, you know, there's now, you know, our head of PR saying he knew nothing about it. I mean, that's another little farce going on in the background. You know, we just seem to be having a week of it.
Yeah, and only Newcastle United on transfer deadline day, when we're in desperate need, could be talking about the fence. It probably sums everything up, doesn't it, really? It just seems quite bizarre. Listen, if there's money to be made, if we're building a 70,000 seat stand on top of his back garden, you know, people are going to make money, aren't they? So in some respects, I can't blame them. I can't blame the bloke for wanting to make a couple of quid, but surely it's a public nuisance, as George just said. I wouldn't fancy parking my car there on Sunday or any other game, I'll be honest with you. So I'm not entirely sure what the plans are, but yeah, I mean, and the other bit as well, I mean, as a consummate conspiracy theorist, as you know, are we going to start to see these odd little things at the time when we're about to launch our public consultation and our plans for the stadium? But we can't go that way because of this. We can't now go that way because a bloke put a 2-foot fence up. We can't build the other way because we'll block the light out to Tesco or whatever it is. So actually, let's bugger off to the racecourse and get our 80,000 seat stadium. Who knows? But yeah, if that's all we've got to talk about today, you know, not signing any footballers and a fence, it's a sad day, isn't it?
Yeah, Steve, the fence, I mean, it's caused a bit of debate in our WhatsApp anyway, but I mean, yeah, it's comical, isn't it, really?
It is, but it's a sign of the times, Steve. Let's look at it from a legal perspective. Not that I'm a lawyer, but I think what we've got here is that someone has taken a chance, someone has done a survey, someone has plotted the club land, then plotted the council's ownership of the road, and spotted a little strip of land that nobody owns. Now, you look at the pavement that covers St James's Park. You look at the footprint, and I think that little bit of tarmac there has just been a presumption that the club owned it. But I think someone's been very clever. They've looked at the club's footprint, looked at land registry, and then realised, you know what? That's neither road nor club pavement. It's a nice little strip of land that nobody owns. So what they've done is they've taken what's known as adverse possession of that strip of land. They've then registered themselves with land registry. And one of the things you do when you take adverse possession, one of the first things they tell you is make sure you fence your bit of land off first. And I think that's what they've done. So they've said, you see that little bit of land that is owned by nobody, I'm laying claim to it. And I've put a fence up to show you exactly where it is. And now the debate starts over, right, well, what can we do? Whether it's health and safety or not, what the club's going to have to do is the club's going to have to line a load of stewards up, and it's going to have to make sure that nobody can trip over that fence, go over that fence in any way, shape or form, because the responsibility of coming out of the ground lies on the club's patch, if you like. But they've got this obstacle right outside their door within 5 foot, and the chances are they're not going to be able to use those turnstiles. So that they're going to have to do something. And I think that's where we're at. I think if you look, you'll suddenly find that person's registered it. It'll be applied on land registry, and now there'll be a legal battle, and there'll have to be a payoff, and someone is going to have to buy that strip of land, or the council's going to get involved. Apparently, the council's already looked and said that they've heard nothing. Well, they've heard nothing because the person didn't need to tell them, because it's not the council land, it's not the road. I think it's a bit of residue land that everyone's made an assumption somebody that the club owned, but someone's been very, very clever and spotted that the club doesn't. doesn't own it, and thought, you know what, I'll take a chance here. And there are people out there that do that type of thing. Mitch mentioned the Ransom strip that came from the lady, I think, whose husband owned the electrical store that was on that strip of land when the tower block was demolished, if you remember. And then there was the rest of the land, and then she stubbornly refused to sell that bit to Mike Ashley and to the club. She didn't like what was going on. We were involved, Mitch and I, at the time, with the Supporters Club, and that's how it ended up as the Sir Bobby Robson Garden. It was kind of handed over there and said, well, look, you know, I'm quite happy for a memorial to be put there, and that's the situation with that. And it was that strip of land was allegedly going all the way up, so far up that road, and it was to stop any development. I think it was also originally to stop Shepherd because she didn't like Shepherd.
Yeah,
and it was to stop them putting what was going to be a casino stroke entertainment complex on that bit of land at the time. She didn't like the way Shepherd had gone about it. He tried to compulsory purchase it. She was having none of it. Her husband had died, and she went, "It's nothing to do. I can just forget about this." So that was historical. But this bit, if you look at it as well, it's not paved. It's just a little bit of rough tarmac, and I suspect this has been going on for quite a while. Without anyone realizing, because that's when the container was placed there. It would have been far better if the container had remained in terms of a health and safety aspect than the little fence. But he's probably realized that I'll put the container there while I go with land registry, and now I've got it with land registry. I've put my claim for adverse possession, and the rules are that you need to fence it off. So that's what he's done.
Interesting stuff. Go on, George. Yeah, somebody asked you a question.
Somebody on there was saying that about the St. James's Park and the land around it being owned by, they said Freemasons. It's actually the freemen of the city who own it. But even they obviously had little parcels of it, which they missed as well. And I think this is what's happened. This is a piece that everybody thought belonged to somebody else and actually belonged to nobody, and somebody's jumped in and taken it off them.
Yeah, property developers do this all the time. It's all over the street.
Freemen of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
The same people the same people that manage the town moor. That's the freemen as well.
Yeah.
You can keep your cows on there unless they get pregnant, and then you've got to take them off.
Okay, plenty to get through still. Tune lookalike next. We've had a mixture this week. Keanu Reeves and Ken Dodd was an interesting one. Apparently it was his birthday, Keanu Reeves, this week. The Oasis tribute, of course, carries on. Oasis reunion confirmed. Thank you for that one, Barry. We had this one from Stephen Kennedy, Alex Scott, and Gene Johansson. Says they're never seen in the same room. I can see the lookalike, Stephen. That's probably one of the better ones that you've sent. Rita, as always, on the ball. Willie Bolton and Michael Johnson was our first offering this week. Our second offering was Jota Silva and Jack Grealish. Yeah, a lot of people were saying that's what you get. Jack Grealish off Wish when he scored that goal, of course, against Newcastle. And another one from Rita, of course, Mr. Steve Hasty. Not one, but two. So didn't even apologize this week, Steve. Didn't even apologize.
Well, never expected one.
I know. Another one from Stephen Kennedy. Didn't have time to alter that one before I chucked it on. But he just says, is that a young Steve Hasty in the green shorts as a young lad? Bit difficult to see that one, but yeah, it looks a little bit like Steve, and as does this, says Stephen Kennedy. Mr. Hasty, deep in thought.
Always deep in thought, Stephen.
Always deep in thought. Yeah, Brad Pitt and Wayne Rooney. I think, Stephen, you meant to send the picture of Brad Pitt, but I think what you've done there is obviously put two Wayne Rooney pictures in. But we get where you were coming from. I think you're seeing Brad Pitt on the left-hand side. Looks like Brad Pitt.
Wayne Rooneys.
Two Wayne Rooneys, yeah. This was a good one as well. The talented musician, Rick Wakeman, and Dr. Zeus from
Yes.
Planet of the Apes. That's pretty good. That was good. I like that one. And Christopher Nicholas submitted this himself. He's a Sunderland fan. He says he's looking. If you ever need a Brian Kilcline lookalike, he says for your Newcastle things, I'm very cheap. I then said I would use this on the show, and he told me to put a photograph in, use a photograph with him in a Sunderland shirt. I went, no, I'll use that one. He looks great like that. Keith is Ted, who I do the Northeast Football Show with, has seen a cat in Cyprus this week who looks like a very famous dictator. We'll say no more. Very good, that, mate. Thank you for that submission. And Steve Hasty from Stephen Kennedy again. He says he made the most of the summer sun at Bamborough last week. And he's this is a strange one as well. Stephen Kennedy, you clearly have eyesight trouble. Is this Steve Wraith playing Ron Howard in a new Netflix movie? Howard, son. I'm not being funny, mate. I don't look that old, Stephen. That's terrible.
Happy days, Steve.
I know. Looks bloody older than me.
Stephen Kennedy's been right on it this week. Jim Davison in a ginger wig or David Caruso. That's a good one, Stephen. He's finally got the hang of it.
It is.
Finally got the hang of it. And we've got this one in from David Hetherington. Mia Dad at Man City.
Madness bloke.
Yeah. Good one.
A madness bloke. This one got sent. It was a couple of weeks ago. Arsenal's away strip.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And this one from 100% Mag, Sean Longstaff and Matt O'Leary from Domestic Disturbance.
That's good, that.
Not bad. Not bad. Yeah. Not the winner, though. Top 4, Craig Hope. Sent one in of himself.
Oh, very good, Craig.
And another one from 100% Mags, Hannah Toynton and Daisy Ridley. That's very good. Very good.
Cheers.
Top two this week. Stephen Kennedy, almost a prile of Hasties. What a hand to be dealt, he says.
He's on a roll, isn't he?
He is. The winner this week, Andrew Bevan, the Lush Looter, and Ian Beale.
Yes.
Very good, Andrew. Very good. Thank you for your lookalikes. If you've got any more to send, join the Facebook group, like the Facebook page, or at Steve Wraith on X, and I'll pick them up this week and feature them next week. Okay, I'll make sure that I don't get it wrong this week. It is time for Tyne Stato. And people will be saying, why are you saying that? It was because last week I introduced Borough Mag, unfortunately, as Tyne Stato. I did profusely apologise, but then I've still had people contacting us saying, why on earth are you calling him the wrong name? So, Joe, I do apologise for that.
Whatever.
I am. So Newcastle United, of course, take on Tottenham Hotspur this coming Sunday. It is a 1:30 kickoff. It is at St James's Park. No updates on any of the long-term injuries. We do know that Joe Willock, though, of course, will be. And he's looking potentially 4 to 6 weeks is what the media said. However, the report from Eddie Howe seemed to be a little bit more positive. So hopefully he will be back a little bit earlier than that. But here is Andrea with his rundown of what we can expect this weekend.
Hello everyone. What a busy transfer window, not. Total meltdown on social media. I hope that the mood is better on Sunday when we play Tottenham at home. The best stats before the game. Newcastle and Tottenham is the most played game in the Premier League without finishing 0-0, 58 times so far. Actually, this game has seen 186 goals in the Premier League. Actually, only Liverpool against Arsenal and Liverpool against Tottenham has seen more goals between two rivals in the Premier League. When it comes to Newcastle, they are on a run of 20 consecutive home games in which they have scored. The record, of course, is under the Kevin Keegan entertainers back in 95-96, when Newcastle scored in 24 consecutive home games. So another 4 to equal this record. Actually, Newcastle are also 9 games unbeaten at home since the defeat against Man City back in January. And only Manchester City, believe it or not, is on a longer streak of unbeaten at home. They're on 31 versus the 9 for Newcastle. No need reminding that the last 2 home games against Tottenham ended with an aggregate 10-1 for Newcastle. And Alexander Isak actually scored in both games at home. Only Alan Shearer has scored in 3 consecutive home games against Tottenham. On the other hand, Tottenham are unbeaten in their first 2 games of the season, and they can go 3 games unbeaten for the 4th consecutive time. So they have a history of strong starts. Let's see what happens on Sunday. However, lads.
Okay, thank you for that, Tyne Stato. And now it is time for Tyne Tipster. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Stephen. You had me confused there. I've actually done some stuff about how do you get to St. James's Park. You have to go around the fence and over the road and all that stuff. So I don't know whether I'm coming or going. So let's try and be bothered. Right, here we go. So in terms of the game on Sunday, we are, of course, home to our favourite team, Tottenham Hotspur. And the bookmakers can't split the winners. So 6-4 for a home win. 6-4 for an away win. Make of that what you will. The draw is 3-1. As Andrea's just said there, goals are really well fancied with the over and under market proven that. You've got to go over 4.5 goals to double money. So 5 goals to get your money doubled. Interestingly, though, if you think there'll be under 1 goal in the game, so no all 0-0 draw, 14-1. If you think there'll be under 2 goals in the game, you can get 5-1. So goals are definitely fancied. In terms of the goal scorer, obviously, again, I'm probably going to say this every week till undoubtedly he gets injured tomorrow and he's out for 6 months. But Alex Isak leads the way in the anytime goal scorer market. He comes in at just under evens. Harvey Barnes has now leapt suddenly up into the top of the betting. Hopefully we'll see a lot more of him because I've been really impressed with him. Him and Anthony Gordon are 2-1 to score any time in the game. Bruno Guimaraes, he is 9-2. And Sandro Tonali, how close did he go on Wednesday night? I was desperate for that one and want to go in. If you think Sandro will score back at St. James's Park, you can get 11-2 for that. A player that I really, really like is Tottenham's son. He is 13-10. And our friend James Maddison, who had an absolute mare last time we played Tottenham at St. James's Park. But you can get just over 3-1 if you think James Maddison will score. 1-0 Newcastle, 16-1. 2-1 Newcastle, 10-1. The Penman is 16-1, and I'm going to put my mortgage on us repeating our 6-1 demolition at 200-1. If you think it'll be 1-1, that's 8-1. 2-2 is 10-1. And if you think we'll get Gub 2-0, you can get 20-1 for Tottenham to win 2-0. A couple of bets that caught my eye. Joe Linton will undoubtedly get a card in this game. You can get 7-4 for that. And Sean Longstaff to be shown a card is 5-1. So there is some interesting bets. Who knows which way it's going to go? But whatever you do, please bet responsibly.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. So we'll go around the board now and talk about the match. I'll give my prediction last night. I genuinely think this will be a very tight game. I do have faith in Newcastle United, though. For all we've complained about the transfer window tonight, we've got a really good squad of players who are committed. They need to up the game, though. It is going to be a difficult task. Spurs don't travel well to Newcastle, though. I do think we've got more than enough to get something out of the game. I don't see Alexander Isak going another game without a goal. I do see him notching at the weekend, but I don't think it's going to be a goal fest, and I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a win for Newcastle. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think it'll be a tight game. I think a point would be a good point against Tottenham at this moment in time, with the way things are. The atmosphere, of course, will be positive. It will be more positive than people expect because war flags will create an atmosphere. There will be some positives to come from it, I'm sure. But as always, if Newcastle revert to the performance of the last few games, then the atmosphere will drop and the murmurs and groans and whatever will be quite evident. That's what happens at football grounds around the world, not just Newcastle United now. So yeah, I think a 1-1 draw. That's what I'm going for. I will give an opinion on the team selection. I would like to see Tonali start the game. And I think that's the big decision that he has to make, is obviously at the back, of course. Who's he going to play left back? Who's he going to play right back? And who's he going to play centre half? And what's he going to do with regards to that midfield? On form, time to drop Joe Linton would be what I would ask. He's not performing well. And put Tonali in. You can always bring Joe Linton on, but maybe look for something a bit different. And at fullback, Trippier still at the club. Who does he start? I against Spurs would start Trippier. I would have as a substitute coming on. At left back, I would go with Lewis Hall, and I would probably go with Kraft and at centre half. That would be my team selection. I think the rest of the team will pick itself. What's he going to do with Harvey Barnes? Did Harvey Barnes do enough to get in? Is he going to start on the right and play Barnes on the left? Is he going to start with that? I would give it a go. Yeah, lots of decisions for Eddie Howe to make, because we were doing the but we were playing for all intents and purposes, Nottingham Forest reserves, and we still look very ordinary. But yeah, I'm going for 1-1. So over to you, mate.
Well, we didn't look ordinary. For the first 10 and the last 20 minutes, would look much better than ordinary, Steve.
We look great in the first 20 seconds.
There's potential in there. We got knocked out of shape by losing Willock, and I think that knocked mentally more than anything else. Probably people feeling for Willock going off. And this is the contradiction, isn't it? We've still got a great squad, and we've got choices to make, which is fantastic. Spurs are on a roll, but I watched most of their game against Everton last week, and I've got to say, I think Liam under-7s could give bloody Everton a game at the moment. When you've got players posting Shawshank Redemption memes when they leave the club, I think that tells you everything that's going on there. That's an absolute cesspit at the moment, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere near it. And so they're one of these teams which I think if you get on top of them early, they'll stay down. Tottenham are coming up with a bit of buoyancy, but I like them to come up with the North East thinking they can win everything, because that's usually when we send them home with their tails between their legs. We've got the ability to win this game. We know we have. It's wonderful to have, it's wonderful that we've got these options now. It would be nice to have more on the back of an active transfer window, but I think at the end of the day, once that white line gets crossed tomorrow, that's where our whole focus is on supporting the team and getting them home. We've done well, 4 points in the next round of the Cup, and we haven't really played stellar other than in patches. So it would be nice to see things come together and see some more cohesive play. Hall, for me, looks like he's trying too hard. Just needs to relax, let the football happen. And I think you're right, Joe Linton hasn't looked in best form, but sometimes when he toughs that out, he eventually clicks and away you go. But it's nice to have these problems with selection. It just would be nice to have further problems.
Okay, mate. As always, we'll get a prediction from you and a prediction from the dice. Yes, give us the dice's prediction. It predicted a 2-1 defeat last week.
And the dice says 1-0 to Spurs. unfortunately.
Oh, it's on a run of defeats for Newcastle. What do you reckon?
I think it'll end a draw. I think it'll be tight.
Okay, you're going for a draw as well. All right, George, give us your views on this game coming up. What would you do team-wise and a prediction as well at the end of it?
Well, like you, I'd like to see Tonali in the starting lineup, and I would like to see Bruno alongside him. I would give Joe Linton a rest at the moment. If I said at the beginning of this show, if we could play for 60 minutes like we did in the first 15 minutes on Wednesday night and at Southampton on Saturday, we would have been out of sight by half time. But we don't seem to be able to ram it home, whether it's Nottingham Forest first team or reserves. We just faded and faded and faded. It wasn't towards the end of the game that we found it again. Otherwise, we were in danger going out. We were in danger throwing it away. So it's the thing about teams winning and getting points when they're not playing well, sooner or later it clicks. And if there's a team that we seem to have it clicking against, it's Spurs. So I'm quite optimistic about this game. I want to see Tonali in, and most rest of the team picks itself. Barnes has got to play as well, in my view. He can come off either side and shoot with either foot, which is a rarity in these days. And similarly with Gordon. And the high line that Spurs choose to defend with, Gordon, Barnes and Isak have the pace to make a mess of that. And so I'm quite optimistic about what's happening. I agree with you. I think if Trippier's there and fit, he should be at right back. Marshall and what's at the back generally. Centre half. If Lloyd Kelly's going to play, that's where I'd play him. He's like Dan Burn. He's not a left back, that's for sure. Lewis Hall gets better every time I see him. His kick off the line against Southampton the other week was real defending skill and knowledge, which I think was what Eddie Howe's been trying to get into him while he wasn't playing, because he was in the right place at the right time. It was a real serious fullbacks thinking to be where he was, and I applaud that. So I would give him the run out at left back. Plus his pace on that side helps the winger that he's playing behind. So I'm positive about it. I think it'll be a very close 4-0 to Newcastle.
Wow. Finishing it with a bit of optimism. Well done, George. Okay, Joe. Interesting, because you obviously look at the the odds as well. My thoughts of a draw. I'm not surprised, to see that there was a decent odds, bit of a return on that. But what's your view?
I love George's optimism. I think we'll get beat about 14-0. What do I think about the game? Do you know one of the things I was thinking about the lineup? Will Eddie Howe do that thing that he's notorious for and play all his mates? Does that mean that, as much as I'd love to see Harvey Barnes in the side on that left-hand side, for me, does it mean that Joe Linton will move out to that kind of wing position that he plays, which means Tonali can come in alongside Bruno, and Sean Longstaff gets to keep his position, and Joe Linton gets a game as well? One could argue, would Joe Linton be a good cover for Lewis Hall? Do we look a little bit stronger down that left-hand side when Joe Linton's out there, or do we lose something in the middle? So don't be surprised if you see Joe Linton pushed forward and Gordon move over to the right and Barnes remain on the bench. If that doesn't happen, I think for me the big call is, does Sean Longstaff come out of the starting 11? Naturally, if you look at the other two midfielders, I guess Longstaff is the person that's going to lose out for Tonali coming in. I think the rest of the team picks for itself. I still, as impressive as he's been when he came on as a substitute, I still would play Tino Livramento. I think he just brings something more to the side than Kieran Trippier, than a 30-odd-year-old Kieran Trippier does now. and the front line will be the front line, won't it? I think if it's not Joe Linton up top, it'll be Gordon, Isaac, and don't be surprised if you see Jacob Murphy again, because that's what happens. There's not really anyone else we can bring in. What will he do with Joe Willock? How fit is he with his what looked like just an old-fashioned clatter, didn't it? It didn't look like and then you're thinking, oh my God, he's going to be out with a thigh tear for 6 months. That looked like a bit of a coming together. I haven't been impressed with us in the 3 games that I've seen. I think we've looked hungover, we've looked lethargic. Somehow, for whatever reason, Anthony Gordon looks like he's just all over the place a little bit. So there is work to be done on the park. The one thing that I do wonder, in the way that Howe and Tyndall galvanised Newcastle, with Graham Jones, is that actually is there a sense of, look, thank God this window's closed. We haven't signed anybody. Let's get out there and let's show them what this team can do. This is the team that invariably qualified for the Champions League. Let's get back out there and show them Eddie Howe's Newcastle United, a bit of that siege mentality. Will a siege mentality be enough to beat a reasonable Tottenham side, who again haven't pulled any trees up, although we've beaten Nottingham in the midweek? They've had a lovely week off doing whatever they do. Will they be absolutely scorned after the battering we consistently give them, and certainly last season? Probably. But are we relatively evenly matched for every Son we've got an Isaac, etc.? 1-1.
After all that.
I'm sitting on that fence outside the East Stand.
He is. A few people sitting on the fence. Alan Thompson, I genuinely, I didn't think I could think of anything else that I would rather end than the transfer window. But your constant sniping about this £1,000 over the last couple of months has really got on my wick. But I have tried to be polite in the chat, and I've continued to be polite, mate. So hopefully tomorrow sees an end to it. Don't want to fall out with anybody, but it's. I just think it's been a bit of a sideshow, and I think it's been an unnecessary one. Like I said at the start of the program, you were offered the bet and you didn't take it, and that's disappointing. The charities missed out on that, but I'm speaking for Stu on his behalf. Stu can speak for himself tomorrow. There's nobody more, as you keep saying, you would love to have seen Stu being right, but at the same time, when there's a challenge thrown down, not to you, it has to be added originally to Ben Jacobs, and Ben said no. You then piped up and you got yourself involved in it, and I think it's just been sad, Alan. You're a really nice guy, and I just think you've embarrassed yourself in the chat with this constant sniping about this bet. And I don't often go on about things like this, but I just think it needs to be said, Alan. I'm a straight talking guy, and I'll be very honest. And this is my platform. It's a platform which I've run responsibly for the last 4 years. We've got a great chat, and we don't like to have this kind of nonsense in the chat. And it's been very close that my hand has hovered over suspending you from the chat on a couple of occasions. I've got the power to do that, and my moderators do. But I do feel, because Stu's a very good friend of mine, somebody who's very genuine, and somebody who's done a hell of a lot for charity and and does a lot of hard work and works very hard for his money, that guy deserves my support tonight. So please, Alan, leave it, stop it, and concentrate on other things, please. Steve, the football tomorrow.
Yes, because the transfer window will be shut by then. So it's interesting. I was listening to some of the stats there from our friend Andre. What he didn't mention was, I looked it up. The last time there was a 0-0 draw between Newcastle and Spurs was 1971. August 1971. I was gobsmacked. It's unbelievable. The last 10 fixtures, 4 wins. We've had 4 wins, 4 losses, and 2 draws. Again, it just shows you how close both teams are. I watched Everton against Leicester, and I thought there was a team that literally capitulated, just fell to pieces. In the same way as against Everton, they played really well against a team who had already capitulated before they walked out onto the pitch. 2 very, very contrasting games, all very interesting. I'm looking now and thinking, we've got Barnes, we've got Murphy, and we've got Almiron possibly vying for the 3 of them for a right wing spot. And to be perfectly honest, of what we've seen this season, probably Barnes is sitting in the box seat for to play on the right wing up front. If he gets selected, of those three, he would be the one that I would say was in the box seat ahead of the other two. But as Joe's rightly said, it's a question of whether we've find a spot for Tonali, who drops out of the midfield to cover for that, to allow Tonali to play. Will Joe Linton move over to the left and fill in a little bit of a hole there? And I think everything else has been said, everything's been covered in terms of, you know, what will Eddie do? Will Eddie go out tomorrow, on Sunday rather, and make a statement of not playing England's potential new number 3, and play the number 3 who's just retired from the England spot? So does he ditch Livramento, put him on the bench and play Trippier? Does Hall get a run out because he did okay last weekend? Sorry, like did okay when he came on and then had an okay game midweek. Or does he go for one of his signings, Kelly? I think the other two positions cover themselves, don't they? In terms of Shaw being out injured, suspended. There's a question mark over Pope as well, but we've only got 4 other goalkeepers to choose from, none of which are going to get a look in, because I thought on Wednesday night there was something about Pope. His kicker was atrocious, absolutely abysmal. And somebody said that we'd signed all these goalkeepers to put him, like, you know, to put pressure on him. Well, it's worked the opposite as you expect for a goalkeeper. And the fact that John Ruddy was on the bench and he's our 5th choice goalkeeper, it leaves me completely baffled. But from what I've seen, I'm expecting Newcastle to grow into the game tomorrow. I'm expecting we got done over on the first game against Southampton by the sending off. It was a battle. Last weekend, I thought that yes, we could argue that we were lucky in terms of the alleged handball, but I thought we had opportunities to seal that game before that happened, and I thought that the longer the game went on Wednesday night, the stronger we looked, the better we played, and the changes did help. It certainly didn't help them; they just ran into a brick wall by the end of it. So I'm hoping that tomorrow we're playing quite an offensive team, and I think it's always exciting and it's always good. There was a little piece up that said that 19 players had played for Newcastle and Spurs. I've actually managed to get it to 22. I'll not name any of them, but on my list, I've now got 22 players on it. I think it was Craig in the Daily Mail who put the question up and said that there were 19 of them. I'm going to check his off against mine after the show. But in terms of where we are, I'm going to say we're going to click tomorrow. I'm going to say there's going to be goals, and I'm going to say that we're going to come out ahead 3-2.
Steve says he's off to get some counsel after tonight's show. He says it's more stressful than the transfer window. Pieces rained out with Alan. We've agreed to move on. So happy days. Alan will be on the Fans Forum on Monday. I'm sure we can have a good big crack with him. Then we've got, obviously, the day I met to bring you. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present. Thanks to Guy Carr. He says, the day I met entry Lewis Miley at the opening of a new facility for Stanley Community Football Club. What a really nice bloke. Guy, thank you for sending that in. Something a bit different. And if you've got a picture,
News wasn't there as well.
He's singing in the clubhouse. Get yourself onto the Facebook group or the Facebook page. Join it or like it, or at Steve Wraith on X so I can play this wonderful music. and a bit of humour. I think my best mate is having an affair with my wife. He's been properly miserable lately. Thank you, Elliot, for cheering us up towards the end. And I want to dedicate this show. He would have laughed at this show, I'm sure. Keith Chilvers, of course, Kevin's dad. It is 7 years since he passed. Big inspiration on Kevin's life, who, of course, is involved with us on the fans forum. And Geordie's here. Geordie's there, but a big Newcastle fan as well. It always hits us all hard when we have anniversaries of loved ones who have passed. But yeah, our thoughts with Kevin and his family in the USA. I know he was tuned in a little bit earlier on. Hopefully he gets a chance to see that before he enjoys his day. But that is it. That is the end of the Amigos. A change in scheduling this weekend because Newcastle play on Sunday. Me, Mitch and Stu Penman will be together as the professionals, 3:30 until 5 o'clock tomorrow. Enjoy your night tonight. Good luck to anyone who is trying to get Oasis tickets in the UK at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. That will be me as well. But that's been the three Amigos. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Steve. Thanks to Borough Mag. Thanks to George. Thanks to Mitch. And of course, thanks to Ian, who came on right at the start, who has shaved his hair off for charity. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye.